Hello, this is Dylan McFry, and I'm here to walk through an assignment that I have come up with that will stimulate the executive function of students who are doing online work in my classes. This is for ITEC 7602, and this is fall 2020 semester, my fourth semester in the program. So as a starting point, I have listed two executive function resources. I use these in my discussion post, and they've also proven to be a big help for this assignment. One, I got a good definition of executive function from exqinfiniteknowhow.com. That website listed it as executive function is a set of mental skills that are used to manage our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to achieve goals. And I liked that because it sums it up in a way that even someone who is not academically inclined can understand what it means. It is just a way for us to manage the way we feel, the way we think, and helps us achieve our goals. Another resource, the second one that I've highlighted here, is from understood.org, and that says that the various skills related to executive function can be categorized in three major groups. Those three groups, and we'll go over them step by step here momentarily, are working memory, cognitive flexibility, and inhibitory control. And then each of these groups have different skills that are a part of each one, such as focus, working memory, organization and planning, perspective memory, problem solving, regulating emotions, self-awareness, and self-regulating. So both of those resources were fantastic to use while planning out this assignment in itself. So the three main groups, as I mentioned before, in executive function are, first is working memory, the second is cognitive flexibility, or another way that I've seen it listed as is flexible thinking. And then finally, number three is inhibitory control, or another way that I saw it listed as, and I believe it's a more common way of stating it, is self-control. I will use flexible thinking for number two and self-control for number three. And what I'm going to do here is I've broken down what executive function is and some resources that I used while looking up different facts about it and learning about what it is. I'm going to show an assignment that I've used for my courses, which have been online so far this school year after the beginning. And I'm going to walk you through how that assignment stimulates each of these three main groups in the executive function of my students. So the executive function assignment that I'm going to be detailing in this video, the title of the assignment is the Scientist Wanted Poster. This is an assignment that is completed individually, so there are no groups, no partners. This is an individual assignment for my students, and the components of this assignment will stimulate all three groups of executive function. Just to show you the actual setup of the assignment itself, here it is. So the basic concept of this assignment is that students will be researching a scientist that they choose from a list that's on the following page. They'll choose a scientist, fill out two research pages which have information about them. So I'll go ahead and show you those. So here's the list of scientists that they choose from. So there's a list of up to 32 scientists. They will then fill out these questions that are on the research pages. There's research page number 1, which has information such as their full name, their birthday, where were they born, what did they do before they became scientists, or while they were doing their research, what was their family like, what did they contribute to science, did they win any awards, how did they die, etc., etc. So they fill out both of the research pages. Cite the resources that they used, because they will always use that, especially as they go further in their education. They will always be required to cite resources when doing research. More works cited, and finally, they will be creating a wanted poster, like old Wild West style wanted poster for the scientist they chose. So they'll insert the scientist's name, they will put a picture in of the scientist, and they will basically list what that scientist is wanted for. In this case, obviously, the scientists would not be wanted for robbing a bank or being wanted to be taken to jail or even shot and killed. Instead, they will be wanted for their amazing accomplishments in whatever field that they worked in. So this will be a space where they detail the scientist's accomplishments. Now, as far as the assignment itself, that is all I had in the document, but I actually expanded the assignment for use with my online courses, and that also worked out perfectly with working with executive function, as I'll show you now. So for the first group, which is working memory, Students will conduct their research on the scientists that they chose. They'll find out information about them, and they'll store all this information in the research pages of the project. And the information that they store in these research pages will be applied in a certain context in the next step of the project, which I'll detail momentarily. So students, they must remember their scientist information in order to use it properly in the next step. So because of that, they will be stimulating their working memory. They will be using their memory from recalling the facts and information they learned about their scientist to apply it in the next step. So there's the first group that is stimulated. The second stimulated group of executive function is flexible thinking. So the part that I did not have on the assignment itself, but I have assigned through an online platform for my students, the students will be creating a social media page of their choosing for their scientists. So whether that's a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, what have you, there are tons of social media options nowadays. Now, to get around this, most social media pages are blocked by school systems. In fact, I would go as far as to say all of them, unless there's one that's so new that school systems don't know about it yet. So what students are going to do is they will instead create a poster simulating an online social media page of their choosing. I was tempted at first to allow them to work on it at home, create the social media pages, and then bring them in to show me. But then I realized they would probably not be able to pull the site up to show me because it would be still blocked at school. And also, I prefer students to actually work in class and not trust them to always take stuff home and do them there, because that would leave dead time during the actual school day. So students will instead market and create posters based off of a social media page. So say a student chose Mary Curie and wanted to make an Instagram page for Mary Curie. So instead they would take a poster and actually design it like you would see on a smartphone by pulling up Mary Curie's Instagram page, and they would design their poster like so. This stimulates their flexible thinking because students are not just, unlike the first step, they're not just gathering information, they're not just researching, they're not just reading off a PowerPoint. Instead, they're actually applying the knowledge that they got from researching their scientists and applying it in such a way as to basically adapt their scientists who probably are no longer living, and if they are, they're probably old and from previous generations before technology really rose to the point it has now. They will adapt their scientists to a modern setting. So Mary Curie, who lived quite some time ago, you will now be able to apply the knowledge you gained from researching her to a modern setting. So you'll be applying the information you learned of her into a social media page that would be active today. So they are applying the knowledge in different formats instead of just regurgitating it onto a multiple choice test, a quiz, or a PowerPoint, or whatever. So that stimulates their cognitive flexibility, helps them think in a more flexible way. And finally, their self-control. Students are going to stimulate their self-control by maintaining their level of work in order to make sure they complete these in the correct amount of time. Students are going to have 1 whole week, so 5 school days to work on this while in class. So they're going to have to make sure they budget their time properly and make sure that they are staying on task and they're focused and they're doing their work, using all time wisely, and to make sure they get it done before the assignment is late. So they want to make sure they get it done before the due date. So they will need to utilize concentration in order to stay focused and complete the work that they need to do. So this will help them develop the concept of self-control. So they'll be able to realize, oh, I've been sitting here talking to my friend for 45 minutes. I probably should focus back in and make sure I do some work today. Otherwise, I'm not going to get this project done in time. So project work is very good in itself for helping students learn self-control because you give students the freedom, you give them time to work on it and say, whatever you do, you got to have this project done by fill in the blank date. It helps them develop the skill of learning how to use their time wisely and make sure that they are staying on task and doing what they need to do. So using this social media page as well as the overall Scientist Wanted poster and research project, students are able to stimulate all aspects of executive function. And going forward in the class, I'll be able to use other opportunities to stimulate this. So not just with this assignment, but then with future assignments, I'll be able to trust that students are working on their working memory. So they're working at memorizing information they're learning in school. Not only that, but they are thinking in a more flexible way. So they're applying knowledge rather than just repeating it. And finally, they are exercising self-control, that they are learning how best to take control of their own learning and how best to make sure that they are keeping themselves accountable. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.